Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Crocodile Monster. Millions of years ago, there was a marine reptile with an unusually long neck. The creature lived in the seaway that once covered Wyoming and much of the United States. It had jaws like a crocodile and was able to whip its neck back and forth like an elephant's trunk. This snaky, croc-faced monster was arguably more terrifying than anything alive today. It was a kind of plesiosaur that typically comes in two distinct types. There was the plesiosaur with a long neck, like that of a giant serpent, and a small head. Then there was the plesiosaur that had a short neck and a gigantic head like that of a crocodile on steroids. The plesiosaur uncovered in Wyoming was entirely unique. Researchers from the College of Charleston say the Wyoming plesiosaur was a weird cross between the two. It lived between 101 million and 66 million years ago. Officially called the Serpentiseucops fisterae, it was 23 feet long, with teeth like skewers. Its main diet likely consisted of squishy cephalopods. It wasn't designed for breaking bones like modern crocodiles, but rather for piercing soft, gooey flesh. Number 9. The biggest dinosaur ever. A recent study has announced the new Lord of the Dinosaurs. This new dino is allegedly the biggest that ever lived, making the Tyrannosaurus Rex look like a baby chicken. It was a plant-eating behemoth about as heavy as a space shuttle, weighing an unbelievable 76 tons. Although its fossils were found in southern Argentina in 2012, it was only now that scientists were able to confirm its immense size. Its name is Patagotitan majorum, and it belonged to the family of dinosaurs known as titanosaurs. If the study is correct, the Patagotitan was the biggest of all the titanosaurs. The only fossils found were uncovered in Patagonia and dated to be about 100 million years old. We only have 6 fossils right now, which is a pretty big shock considering how massive the creature was. You would think such a big dinosaur would leave a lot more bones lying around. Researchers say it averaged about 122 feet in length, standing 20 feet tall at the shoulders. Its enormous neck was where it really got its length, making it so big that its head currently sticks out into the hallway outside its exhibit at the American Museum of Natural History. It was almost too big to fit inside the museum. Up until now, the Argentinosaurus had the title of the biggest dinosaur ever, but now that title has passed on to the Patagotitan. Number 8. Rare Dino Mummy. Scientists believe they have stumbled upon a dinosaur mummy in Canada. The entire skeleton of what appears to be a hadrosaur was identified buried in a rocky hill in Dinosaur Provincial Park, located in Alberta. The reason scientists are calling it a mummy is because the entire animal looks to be preserved in the rock, making it an extremely rare find. The problem is, it is in a very precarious position. The discovery was first made in 2021 on a scouting mission by paleontologists. The park happens to be one of the richest fossil deposits in the world. During the mission, a volunteer noticed a piece of a dinosaur skeleton sticking out from a hillside. The team returned in 2022 and began an excavation. They haven't been able to get the dinosaur fully out yet, but they have revealed its tail and foot. They think it's a large duck-billed dinosaur, perhaps a juvenile. That makes it even more exciting because adolescents are more rare in the fossil record. If scientists can pull the full skeleton out of the rock, they could gain a better understanding of how hadrosaurs grew into adults and what their development was like. But by far the most impressive part is that the skeleton is covered in fossilized skin. The suggestion is that underneath the rock, we have a fully mummified dino with its skin intact. This is highly unusual and a very big deal, because maybe, just maybe, we might be able to get some dino DNA. The only sad part is that it could take years for scientists to painstakingly chip the hadrosaur from the hillside. Number 7. Giant Mystery Dinosaur. An entirely new species of horned dinosaur was recently discovered in New Mexico. Well, actually, the specimen was discovered in 1975, but it took decades of research at the New Mexico Museum of Natural History before scientists were able to identify the dinosaur as a new kind of animal. At last, they finished cleaning, investigating, comparing samples, and doing their due diligence. Researchers have now named the dino Bistroceratops frosorium. It lived 74 million years ago in the Cretaceous era, the very last era before the dinosaurs were wiped out by the deadly asteroid. The dinosaur is a type of ceratopsid, which is related to the famous Triceratops. It was a heavy herbivore with 4 bulky legs, long horns, a beak instead of a normal mouth, and a forehead like a shelf made of bone. Although it was a truly gigantic creature, researchers believe it was a gentle giant. It was mainly hunted by the Tyrannosaurus Rex, as is evident by marks left on the Triceratops skull. Paleontologists identified bite marks on its jaws, cheek, and head. It appears to have been lightly snacked on by some kind of tyrannosaur. The only thing researchers don't know is if the tyrannosaur killed it or just nibbled on its dead body. As for size, the Triceratops was enormous. It grew to be 20 feet long and up to 4 tons. It also used its horns both as defensive weapons and in mating rituals. In the case of ceratopsids, the size of their horns really did matter if they wanted to secure a mate. And now for number 6. But first, it's shout-out time! I want to say a big thank you to Wayne Herschel and Brad Long for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos about amazing dinosaur discoveries. Number 6. Saber-toothed predators. Scientists recently described one of the very first carnivorous cats that lived 42 million years ago. Its name is borderline unpronounceable, but we're gonna try. It's called Diegoloris van Valkenburgh. It lived at a time when predatory mammals were starting to figure out how to survive on a diet of just meat. Predators had not yet fully developed the tools needed to pursue a strictly carnivorous diet. One of the new features of feline evolution was specialized teeth, which could be used for slicing raw meat. This is what gave the Diegoloris the advantage. Unfortunately, there is only a single piece of lower jawbone with a couple of teeth attached that proves this prehistoric saber-toothed predator even existed. That is the only physical piece of evidence we have, and yet scientists have done a lot with that one piece. They know the animal belonged to the subfamily of extinct cats known as Machairoidinae. Ashley Paus from the San Diego Natural History Museum says at the time the cat was alive, nothing else like it had ever existed. A couple of mammal ancestors had possessed fangs, but nothing else had teeth like scissors for slicing apart their victims. This was the first carnivorous cat in the evolutionary tree. Every house cat you've ever met got its teeth from this first leap in feline evolution. The Diegoloris was also likely the ancestor of the Smilodon Fatalis, the most famous saber-toothed cat of all, that lived during the Ice Age. Number 5. Dinosaur versus Ancient Croc. In 1999, a 23-foot-long monster of a dinosaur was discovered near the small North Dakota town of Marmarth. It was a plant-eating type of hadrosaur called an Edmontosaurus. The discovery was huge because the creature had fossilized skin, something very rare in the world of paleontology. The dinosaur was briefly investigated, and then it was put into storage. Recently, researchers took another look at it. They were shocked to discover that the Edmontosaurus had been chomped on by an ancient crocodile. They found its flesh was ripped apart, and that may be the reason it was preserved as a mummy. Scientists working on the project say they really weren't expecting to find bite marks. Researchers have always assumed skin would never mummify if it was damaged by the teeth of a carnivore before it was buried. In fact, they have always thought the only way that soft tissue of any kind could be preserved was if the remains were buried almost instantly. For example, if a dinosaur was caught in a landslide and buried under tons of sediment. But here's where the mystery gets even more confusing. Researchers identified the bite marks of an ancient crocodile relative and the bite marks of a different animal that chewed the hadrosaur's tail. It's believed all that chewing separated some skin, allowing it to dry out for several months before it was buried and underwent fossilization. Number 4. Dinosaur eggs. A recent discovery of dinosaur eggs may have just proved that dinosaurs operated in a complex social structure. In fact, dinosaurs may have worked together as a community in a way that some humans still can't even achieve. It all started in 2013 when some eggs were exhumed from a dinosaur graveyard in Argentina. Since then, over 100 eggs have been found in prehistoric nests. Scans have shown that the eggs all belong to a species of herbivore called Musaurus patagonicus. Testing the shells proved that the eggs came from 193 million years ago. But there's another part of this discovery. Researchers found fossilized bones from 80 juveniles and adults at the same site in Argentina. The shocking part was that the remains were separated by age. For example, eggs and early hatchlings were found in one spot, adolescents were found nearby but in a different area, and then adult bones were discovered spread throughout the area, usually in pairs. These dinosaurs lived in a common nesting ground and were extremely intelligent. The young dinos congregated in what researchers have called schools, while the adults hung out with their partners and foraged for food. Number 3. Giant ostrich. 85 million years ago, Mississippi was overrun with gigantic dinosaurs that looked like modern ostriches. They were called ornithomimosaurs, which translates roughly to bird mimics. They weren't birds, but they did look a lot like them, hence the name. They were bipedal, meaning that they ran around on 2 legs. They were distantly related to the ferocious Tyrannosaurus Rex, but they were also very different. These were significantly smaller than their tyrannosaur cousins. They were built lighter and had the one thing the T-Rex didn't: long arms. Bird mimics also weren't strictly carnivores, but ate a varied diet of meat and plants. They had beaks just like birds, but some of them had teeth, and some of them only had their beaks. They also ranged greatly in size. Some of these dinosaurs stood up to 36 feet tall, while some were no larger than an average dog. 2 new species of ornithomimosaurs were recently discovered in Mississippi. One weighed about 1,760 pounds and was still growing when it died. The other was about 50% smaller, and yet they were found in the same place and lived around the same time. What this seems to suggest is that Mississippi was totally overrun with multiple species of rampaging ostrich-like dinosaurs, which roamed all across the eastern United States through Appalachia. Number 2. Mystery fossils. In 1907, curious fossils were discovered in some sand dunes in Scotland. The fossils were not preserved bones, but rather the outlines of bones sketched into some pieces of sandstone. The only way scientists could study the imprints was to create a wax mold and take it back to the lab. Researchers believed they had discovered an extinct reptile about 8 inches long, with an oversized head, long hind limbs, and a short neck. They named the creature Scleromochlus taylori, but could never identify what it was. It would be 115 years before modern paleontologists used X-ray scans to solve the mystery once and for all. A mystery 231 million years in the making. High-resolution X-ray scans revealed anatomical features that had never been seen before from the Scleromochlus. These scans were able to firmly place the animal inside a group of reptiles known as loggerpetids. These tiny reptiles were remarkable because they shared anatomical traits with pterosaurs, making them a kind of missing link in the evolution of the world's first flying vertebrates. Scientists have never been able to understand the evolution of pterosaurs, a hugely diverse group of creatures unlike anything alive today. They were some of the biggest animals on the planet, yet also some of the smallest. They were flying reptiles that came in so many shapes and sizes, it's been difficult to figure out where they came from. The oldest pterosaur lived 220 million years ago and was a fully formed flying organism. It just kind of appeared out of nowhere and then branched out in 100 different ways. But the loggerpetids may have had something to do with pterosaur evolution. These reptiles may have been the ancestors of pterosaurs, as is evident by certain physical characteristics, specifically elongated fourth fingers that no other creature had. These fourth fingers were what pterosaurs used to support their wings. However, it's still a mystery. The Scleromochlus didn't have any obvious adaptations to help it climb, glide, or even jump. How it went from walking to flying is unknown. Number 1. Mammoth tusk. A man from the Saddle Lake Cree Nation in the Canadian province of Alberta made a shocking discovery on his property. Jared Cardinal was digging a hole in his backyard when he hit something hard, about 6 feet deep. At first, it felt like he had hit a piece of wood with his shovel, like from a coffin. But when he cleared away the dirt, it turned out he had something very special. He had just dug up a piece of a tusk. Jared had in his hands the tusk of a woolly mammoth that lived in Canada about 11,000 years ago. It was in bad shape, broken and cracked, but it was definitely a tusk. It wasn't the whole thing, just a fragment of it, and there could be more remains from an extinct mammoth somewhere in his yard. He refused to hand the tusk over to any museums, so we don't know exactly how old it is. We also don't know if Jared's found anything else. Right now, he's thrilled to have a real, tangible piece of ancient history on display in his house, dug from his own backyard. Thanks for watching! What would you do if you found a mammoth tusk? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. See you later. Bye!